Hello, dear doodle bugs. We are back. I'm back. You're back. This is part 3 of the Creepy Mermaid ARTCAST. In this part, I'm going to be painting this image in real time. You can watch me paint with watercolor. If you missed part 1 and part 2, there will be links on the screen as well as in the description below, so you can check those out. The how-to art videos, as I said before, are going to be coming back at the beginning of April 2015. So with you being in the future, always in the future, you are, that may or may not have happened. So be sure to check those out when they come back. Coming up next is going to be drawing hands, because that has been the #1 requested tutorial, I assume. I don't know. It's not a scientifically accurate count of the requests. I'm human. I'm not a robot. All right, let me tell you what I'm using today. I'm painting with watercolor paints. I would tell you the brand, except there's a smattering of brands in my palette. Usually what's on sale. My brand is what's on sale. I would say there's some good brands, like Winsor Newton is a good, like, affordable brand that's good quality paint, but doesn't cost a crap load. So when it comes to watercolor paints, there's student grade and there's artist grades. And I've heard 2 different arguments toward choosing a paint. Personally, I am all for getting what's in your price range, what's affordable to you. That, to me, is very important, because I feel if you can't even afford the materials, you're not going to want to use them. And to get better, you have to keep making paintings. You got to make throwaway paintings. You got to sketch with these materials. So if having the best, something's spinning. Sorry. So having the best materials, if that's your objective, that might hold you back if you can't afford it, if that makes any sense. On the other hand, I do feel that artist grade paints are amazing. Once you use them, they're so good and you never want to go back. And sometimes it's just a matter of a few dollars difference. Sometimes it's more. So that call, I would say, is up to you personally as the artist, and where you feel comfortable spending your money and your time and your effort and your energy. I'm painting on Bristol board paper, which is not quite watercolor paper, but it is much thicker than regular office printer paper. And it's not designed for watercolor, but it can handle it. And I like using it when I do inks, because it's a very smooth paper, and I think ink takes to it nicely. The watercolor behaves a little bit differently on this paper than it does on watercolor paper. On watercolor paper, I feel like the paint gets soaked in a little more. And with Bristol board, it seems to be floating on the top of the page. So doing the washes and that fun stuff that watercolor is well known for, that can be a bit trickier, but you can make it happen. So again, it's all a personal preference thing. But if you get a chance to do ink on Bristol board, it's kind of a really fun experience, especially if you're wanting to get into doing cartoons and comics. Finally, the brushes that I use, again, it's another mixed brand sort of deal. Whatever's on sale. You can use synthetic hair brushes or real hair brushes. The real hair brushes are made out of a variety of animals, a menagerie. And the real hair is usually much softer. What you're seeing me use right now is a synthetic hair round tip brush. And it's a bit bigger, and I'm using this for the initial layer of watercolor paint. I like this brush for this stage because it's larger, so you can cover more space, but it's also a round tip, so it's got this nice point if you're needing to work around corners. Like I'm laying down this first wash of a gray, green, blue kind of drab color, and I'm needing to weave that in between fingertips and around the heads of the figures. So I find it's a very nice brush for that. And it is synthetic hair, so it's a little stiffer. There's a little more control. It's an element of almost like the same gestures as I would be using if I'm drawing. a little more control. All of these materials I'm going to put links to in the description below if you want to check them out. If you're in the market for new materials, trying something new, or stocking up on old stuff, these links are just a suggestion of things that I feel worked nicely for me. And if you want to buy them online, go ahead and click those links. It'll take you to Amazon.com. And if you go through those links, I get a cut of the action, and you can help support this channel while binging on the things you love and becoming a consumer, as we all are. So yeah, check that out. Or go to the art store in Human and talk to human beings, who are usually pretty helpful. I get a lot of questions about the specifics of materials, and I feel I have something in common with people who ask those. I like to know exactly what I'm getting when I'm shopping for my art supplies. I don't want to leave anything to chance. So I try to research things as much as I can, but at the same time, I am very tra-la-la-la-la with remembering, what particular items I'm using or brands. People ask a lot about the brands that I'm using. And to be honest, I'm not super picky about them, or at least I don't feel I am. Not enough to know my brands offhand. I'm not like, I only use these kind of brushes. Yeah, I'm pretty whatever. So if you do ever have any questions, any art store, if it specializes in selling art supplies, usually they tend to have pretty cool employees. A lot of times they are fellow artists who are there, because they need a day job, but they also like art. So they're working there, probably getting a discount. Good deal. So people are very helpful out there, and they can guide you to what you need, I've found. Let's see. Well, I was going to answer some questions from the previous video. Let me pull some of those up right now. First question is from Jen Murr. Jen says a lot of very lovely things, and then says, I want to be a special effects makeup artist, but a big problem is that I have to be able to make face charts / draw the makeups I'd want to do, but I can't draw. Well, I can draw, I have arms, but my skills are very bad. I've wanted to draw since I was a little girl, and I've practiced since I can remember. I can draw some animals and flowers, but humans' anatomy are horrible. I've found my problem is that every line has to be perfect. I can't go on until the line is perfect, and I know I can erase, but I know I can erase and all, but the perfection thing is such a roadblock. Do you have any tips or suggestions as to what could help me? I know that was long, but thank you very much for your amazing out. You've inspired me to not give up. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you. I love hearing that people get motivated to draw when they see me draw, because I get motivated to draw when I see other people draw. So it's a circle of life. I had to change a note. Otherwise, that would be copyright infringement. To answer or to give some tips and advice. So getting over the perfect line thing sounds like it's a hang up, and I would recommend do some sketching exercises where you give yourself a time limit to draw something. Say, pick a still life and say you're going to draw that, but in a minute, like in a quick 1 minute, quick sketch. Try and get in the habit of doing more sketchy things. When I say sketches, I mean rough drawings. If you just do a Google search of sketch, you'll see that it's mostly a lot of squibbly lines that seem to make a general shape. And sketches are not supposed to be neat and tidy, and they are a really great way to exercise drawing figures and getting ideas out very quickly, and to get yourself out of that perfection mindset. A lot of times, I've met very young artists who are just starting out and they want to draw a figure with crisp, clean lines right away. And that's sort of like, wanting to start climbing a mountain, but you want to start at this crazy high altitude way up top, when really you should be starting at base camp, at the base of the mountain. And that's with sloppy, sketchy work. So challenge yourself to do some sloppy sketches just for fun. There's no stakes. These aren't going to become a final image. Another thing I guess would be a question or something to think about is Is it just the humans and anatomy you're uncomfortable with? That's kind of what it sounds like. It sounds like you feel very comfortable with animals and flowers, but not people. And I get that. I feel like a lot of artists have their thing that they're really good at. And so you're a little intimidated when you're drawing something that you feel you're not so good at. And that's where that little voice in the back of your head who's backseat driving starts coming in and puts the pressure on you to be a little more of a perfectionist. So maybe take note of, where you're at when you're drawing something you're comfortable with. Are you thinking about it? Are you also trying to do perfect lines with these other shapes and characters, and try to incorporate some of that emotion, I guess, or what's going through your head when you're drawing animals and flowers into when you're drawing humans and anatomy. Also look up guidelines. And I'm sure you're aware of these, but for those who aren't, guidelines are a tool that people use to draw figures when you don't have a figure or a subject that you're studying in real life. Or if you do have a subject, the guidelines just kind of help you get proportions correct. And you've probably seen them before. You can do a Google search for drawing guidelines and faces, for example. It would be a rough circle, and then there's a vertical line going down the middle and a horizontal line going down the center, and that would be the eye line where the eyes line up. And then you have a nose line and a mouth line, and it's a more not geometric, I'm going to say like mathematical way of dividing shapes into segments that can help get those proportions down. So if you're having problems drawing faces, there's some pretty simple formulas for getting the proportions very accurate that don't involve being super creative. Definitely worth checking out. And I hope that it was helpful to you, not too rambly. All right, Samuel writes saying, "Hello, I'm 14 and I want to be a professional artist for a career." As an adult, but many people have told me starting as an artist is difficult and the money isn't good if you aren't famous. What is your advice, and is this true? I feel like everybody who does something creative for a living has been told that they're not going to make money and it's not going to be easy. Oh dear, my phone's ringing. I have to shut you off real quick. Okay, so first and foremost, the thing you should be focusing on now, and especially at age 14, you're young, you have time to work and hone in on your skills. First and foremost, all you need to be concerned with right now is making the kind of art that you love. I will say, growing up, everybody could see that I could draw, and the first thing they would say is, you could be an animator. I've since learned that animation is not my thing. And while it does use the same skills that, a portrait painter would use, or a concept artist or a storyboard artist would use, animation is not my bag. Neither is storyboarding. So there's many different jobs that the drawing skill requires, but you might not really be into it. So figure out what kind of art you want to make, and that could change over time. Maybe you're going to try doing watercolors and stuff that I'm doing. Maybe then you take an oil class and fall in love with oil paint or sculpture, something completely different. So right now is the time to focus on the kind of art that you want to make and discovering and exploring that. Then the next step, as you're looking into getting a career, is figuring out how do you apply your skill toward getting a job. And my suggestion for getting through that challenge is finding other people who do the same thing that you want to do. Find professionals who are making a living and maybe reach out to them, ask them, what paths they took. Try to pick as many brains as you can, or read up on, people's life story and where they've gone. Because it's not the same path for everyone, but it might give you a better idea of, maybe where you need to start putting yourself in the world. For example, I know a lot of people from film school who wanted to be directors, and then they've learned that, it wasn't necessarily being in film school that got other directors directing. It was moving to Hollywood and Los Angeles and assembling a group of friends together and producing their own short film. That's a very vague example, but yeah, reach out, do some research as to who is doing the thing you want to do and figure out how they got there and try to apply that to your own life path. And then, finally, my third bit of advice is to act on everything. You aren't going to get anywhere if you don't put your work out there, if you don't expose what you've made so that people can give you feedback and critique, so that people can see it and appreciate it and enjoy it. And that can be a very difficult thing to do, but it's very necessary. If you keep it close to your chest, it's never going to fly free and take you to magical places as an artist. And I got the money thing is so depressing, because I get where people are coming from when they warn you that there's not a lot of money in art, because there really isn't right off the bat for most people. However, I feel like most people who tell young artists, "Oh, you'll never make any money," I'm going to revise this. I was going to say most people aren't in the art industry. But then I realized, there are a lot of people in the art industry who will be the first to tell you it's not where you go to get rich and famous. It's not. It's where you go because you really don't want to do anything else. You want to avoid all the other jobs. Money is a tough one, but it's not impossible. And you're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to figure out where you can find jobs, where you can make jobs for yourself. For example, graphic design is where a lot of artists and creative people tend to pick up extra work as freelance graphic designers. And, I had a friend who, she was a great designer, and she got into the YouTube world and knew a lot of people who did YouTube and realized, there's a lot of YouTubers who need better graphic design in their videos, or backgrounds on their video sets, or business cards or banners. There's a job. She found a job opening that nobody else realized was there and was asking for. And she'd approach people and be like, "Hey, I can fix up this thing for you. You can hire me as a graphic designer." And boom, she got some gigs. So you got to be a little bit creative to make money, but it's not impossible. This is a magical time we're living in. We have this magic internet thing that's happening. There are so many platforms where you can get yourself out there. There's so many ways you can find resources and search stuff. So you can both learn and promote yourself on this same magical wave we ride that is called the internet. I'm going to be bold and say this could probably be the best time in history to be an artist, because not only are the tools there and available for you, but there's a demand for it. And now, instead of there being this tiny elite little club of artists who apprentice under one another and have to do things correctly, now whatever it is you're into making, there's probably somebody out there who's also into it. So it's a good time to be alive for an artist. Yeah, you don't have to be famous. Fame's not what's gonna make you a better artist. That's not what it's about. Okay, a final question as this painting's wrapping up is from Danielle, who writes saying, "I've been doubting about my artwork lately, and I don't seem to ever have inspiration to do anything. I really do love drawing, and people in my class relay to me on drawing related things. But I see but it seems I've kind of lost interest in drawing, even though I really want to work on animations or interior design when I get older. This seems like I've lost interest in like my other hobbies, like singing and playing piano. I'm very scared if I'm going to lose the hobby or interest that I love. And all right, Danielle, I picked your comment because it's something that I've gone through, and I've had these feelings too. And I'm going to use the depression word. Big disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. So there's like gradients of depression, and we've all heard of like the deep, dark depression that you got to be, calling your friends every night and be like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you still with us? Stay in the world. You have everything to live for. I'm not saying this is what's coming up on your horizon or anything. I have no idea. I'm just reading text on a screen that you put there, and that's my only connection to you. And I don't want to ring bells that don't need to be rung. But I also do want to point out that human beings feel really good sometimes, and then human beings feel really bad sometimes. And people go through waves of depression. It's a normal thing, and it's not necessarily a terrible thing. The terrible thing is when you succumb to it and accept, I guess everything sucks and I don't like the things I once liked. And, I guess this is how I'm going to feel forever. That's a tough one. I will say, I kind of went through a funk. I've been going through a couple funks recently. I'm not quite in one now, but for me, it helps to just get out of town, to change environments. If I go on a camping trip, I come back so rejuvenated. I recently traveled abroad and I hardly touched my sketchbook. I was meeting new people, eating foods I'd never eaten, seeing places that I could never have seen before unless it was in a National Geographic magazine, and it was amazing. And when I came back, I was super ready to draw. So sometimes, and this is just for me, stepping into a new environment helps, and stepping away from those things that you love, but you're not feeling excited about anymore. That kind of sounds, I guess that's a little counterintuitive, but stepping back can help. It really can. And it doesn't help to focus on, oh my God, do I not love this anymore? I don't think that's a productive thing to focus on. I think the thing to focus on is finding that fire again. And that might be in taking a break from what it is that you've been doing. If that helps any. I'm sorry. Well, as this video is wrapping up on, sorry to leave on a depressing note. And, I'm hoping it'll get better for you, because it's gotten better for me. And, it just happens. People go through phases, and that's not something I really realized until, later in life. I think when I was in high school, if I stopped liking something, I was like, oh no, this is how it's going to be forever. But now I realize, sometimes I go through a phase where for a couple of years, I'm really into something, step away for a year, and then, later on, I pick it up again, and it's like, oh, right, I like this thing. And with drawing, you can get rusty, but it's kind of like getting back on a bike. You still got those skills deep in you that you can reach back in and polish off again. And there's something to be said for having other experiences that do inform your art. Maybe you do go and do a year of study abroad, and then suddenly your style has this new energy and life injected into it because you had new experiences that you've gone through and you got excited about new things. Just a suggestion. I hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoyed this video and these other ARTCAST videos. I will be making more in the future, but coming up next will be the how to art, drawing hands. And there will be linkeries and good things to that on the screen and in the description below. And if you enjoy the ARTCAST format, I have some exciting news. I sat down with a friend today and we made the first Mary Doodles podcast. And I'm aiming to have that come out in April. So if you're intrigued by the idea of that, you can go to marydoodles.com. There will be a podcast page with all the information on that. We'll be trying to get it up on iTunes and in all these places where you can get podcasts if you're interested in listening to podcasts. And yeah, please leave your feedback in the comments below and tweet me at Mary Doodles and all that good stuff. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye. Goodbye.